Hello, horror fan, best friends, and ghoulish knights, and welcome to the 28th episode of Murders with Mertens. I am your host, Joe, and this is a podcast about horror. Super meta slashers, dark comedies, body horror, the horror adjacent, thrillers, the psychologically terrifying, scary films in general. Each episode, I sit down with a guest and discuss one of their favorite scary films so we can gush about everything that makes it just so damned cool. Viewers, thank you for the support. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you are so inclined. It all helps to get the word out and bring some much needed love to this little podcast. Audio listeners, the show is also available on podcast services around the world like Apple Podcasts and Spotify, so don't forget to leave a rating when you stop by. But enough about all that housekeeping. We need to continue on with this series themed around Scream because we barely have any time left before Scream 6. And to that end, I have the privilege of welcoming back to Murders with Mertens, Mr. Too Feist, Too Furious himself, Mr. Andrew Feistner. Drew,
Hello.
How the hell are you?
I'm doing well. I'm hoping you're doing well as well.
I am very happy to get out of work today and be doing this. This is going to be fun. Tonight's topic is 2022's Scream, also known to some as Five Cream, sometimes Scream, sometimes just Scream 5. But this is directed by Radio Silence, specifically Matt Bettinelli, Olpen, and Tyler Gillette, and written by James Vanderbilt and Guy Busick, and of course based on characters by Kevin Williamson. Drew, I know this only released 14 months ago, but any specific history with this film?
This was the first one I got to see in theaters, so that was pretty exciting because,
Nice.
I got into them at the end of 2021, like in that fall time, and then, the day before I went to see it, I was in a patron Discord that was doing like a Patreon thing. I'm not. I am the patron. Words. But they were doing a binge of 1 through 4, and so I joined them, and then the next day I went to see 5, and that was a lot of fun. Because I really like these movies, and it's really hard for me to just watch one of them out of order without watching any of the subsequent ones.
Seriously, watching them in quick succession is a ton of fun. For sure. Yep. Not a lot to say as far as history myself. Again, this movie is barely over a year old. Wow, did they fast track this sequel? It's the only thing that I'm worried about with it, that it was put together possibly a little too quickly. But we'll find out shortly. It's a matter of days at this point.
Than Scream 2 got.
Yeah, that's true. That's I think I have a little bit better appreciation for that film now, but it still ranks at the bottom of my ranking. For me, it's the original, then Scream 4 with possibly Scream 5 tied with it. I still don't know how I feel about those two versus each other. And then number 3 and number 2 at the bottom. 2 has some stuff in it that does not age particularly well. And 3, I think, just is elevated a little bit for me just because the campiness of it is a ton of fun. And from what I've been hearing from people that were able to see Scream 6 early, the campiness is ramped up just a little bit. So we may be in for a good time.
That's good. I like it when they're fun. I don't particularly enjoy it when it's always serious.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, they kind of are horror comedies, at least a little bit. Not full tilt like a Shaun of the Dead or anything like that, but the humor is an important part for sure. I'm super geeked. We were talking as we were getting things set up about how again, getting fast tracked like it was, a little worried. But Radio Silence in general, they don't seem to miss as far as their direction in feature films. I know they've only got really 2 full ones under their belt. It's the same writing team as the previous one, so that's good news. Yeah, we'll find out very soon. Um,
Yeah. No Sydney, so they can't
I,
just rely on her to, carry the movie.
although to be fair, she was not in much of the last one, so
No.
maybe I'm not so super worried about that. I'll miss her for sure.
Hmm.
She's always been such a fun character, and Nev Campbell really killed it in the last two. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I'm sad, but also, hopefully if this continues on, they understand that they need to they need to pay up. Um,
Yeah.
I think that's earned. So good for her for sticking to her guns on that. Um, I think
Yeah.
that's important. And yeah, yeah. Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
um,
I mean, we got 2 seasons of a show called Scream. It doesn't have to do with Ghostface, but it's still. I think it works pretty well without Sydney because obviously it's not Ghostface, but I think it
yeah,
works pretty well. So maybe this can show that we can leave Sydney to ride off into the sunset with Kincaid instead of
right,
just
right.
relying on her to always clean up the messes of
Well,
Ghostface.
like we were
Just
talking about in the Discord, that's on Netflix, so you can check it out there.
don't watch
I
season 3.
that's what everybody tells me. So maybe at some point I will jump in and then get my heart broken by season 3 because I won't be able to stop myself. But you know, we'll
Maybe watch it first.
uh, wow.
I was like, I'll watch Scream, and then it was like season 3, episode 1. I was like, no, 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 and then I was just like, well, I started it. It's short. I'll just watch it.
Wow. That sounds depressing.
It
Yeah,
did me dirty.
we'll see how it goes. Um So, Drew, I think it's time we get into the plot here. We begin with the sound of a ringing landline that a teenage girl promptly silences as she goes about texting her friend Amber, telling her there's foods and shows to binge watch in it for her if she wants to come over. Amber wants more, so this girl offers the promise of an unlocked liquor cabinet as well. She takes a blast from her inhaler, and the landline starts ringing again. She gripes about it to Amber in a text and then finally picks up the phone because you got to pick up the phone in these movies or else there's not much of a plot. The voice
And then we'll
asks,
just keep ringing.
yeah, and it would just get really annoying and weird. Um, so, yes, she picks up the phone finally, and the voice asks if Christina's there. And the girl offers to take a message because no, she's not. And well, the voice says he's a friend of hers from group and then swears, realizing that he just outed Christina. Tells her just to tell Christina that Charlie from group called. Um, it's a little bit different this time around. Ghostface is,
Charlie, pretty
playing.
friendly.
Yeah, he's kind of playing more of a character almost.
Hmm.
Um, it's different, and that's cool because that's kind of the whole point of this film. Um,
Yeah,
so yes, the
just
girl,
different enough.
you just different enough, absolutely. The girl needles him, trying to get him to give up what kind of group it is that his mother is in with him, and he tells her that she sounds just like her mother described her. Um, yes, this girl, she talks about me in group. She's clearly grossed out by the idea. Um, the voice mentions that she told him she loves scary movies and that her mother is proud that she made her made a fan out of her. Um, and her mother wonders what's her favorite scary movie. Yeah, let's fucking go because we got to have the question, right?
Yep, it always starts with the question.
Yup, this is one that will always come up. And, thinking nothing of it and not remembering much of the stab movies, she says The Babadook. And, she brings up her love of elevated horror. And the voice says what a lot of us say when people bring up elevated horror. What does that mean? Elevated horror. And she goes on to describe nearly every horror film, sadly, because what people think of as elevated horror, you can basically call out in most horror movies, unless they're just absolute shit. Most horror films actually have something to say. People
Yeah, there's
think,
just
yeah,
it also like kind of makes fun of people who do say things like that too.
oh yeah,
A lot of people miss that, but that's exactly what they're doing here.
yep. Yep. It's quite a bit of topic of conversation in the horror community over the past, I don't know, maybe better part of 10 years, it feels like, over, elevated horror films, because they're A24 pieces, and A24 mostly cranks out indie films. And, you know, um, I get it. I get you think that it's more than what it is, but most horror films are some kind of commentary on something to begin with. So, yeah.
Unless it sucks, like you said.
Unless it's absolute dog shit. Yes, absolutely. Those have their place as well, but for the most part, yeah, most horror has something to say. Um, so yeah, what she describes is basically every horror film ever, and that sounds boring to Ghostface. So he asks if she's ever seen Stab. She ponders a bit, and then she thinks, yeah, maybe she did at a sleepover when she was a kid, but doesn't really remember it very well, other than it was super 90s and it was really overlit and everybody had weird hair. Yeah, thanks for that. Uh, and then in describing the beginning of Stab, he's beginning to describe her situation that she's in. The movie begins with a girl who's alone in a house, and she gets a phone call from somebody who wants to play a game with her. And he asks, would you like to play a game, Tara? Yeah, here we go. Because ultimately, we know that Ghostface knows exactly who he's talking to and who he's stalking through the phone. And
It's really subtle, but you can tell that she is immediately terrified by it.
oh,
Like,
she freezes up big time. Yeah.
yeah, I guess it's not really subtle, but you can just
Yeah.
immediately tell she's like completely terrified.
Jenna
And
Ortega is a
yeah.
great fucking actress. I'll tell you. She had a wonderful year in 2022, and she will
Mhm.
continue to do some cool stuff. And I hope she gets to do more horror films as well, because I think the spoopy stuff is kind of her shtick. So Tara immediately hangs up the phone, kind of freezes, and then uses this app on her phone, one of those, kind of like home automation type things, your generic Alexa or whatever, to ultimately make sure that all the doors in the house are locked. And she texts Amber about what's happening. She's kind of peeking outside, and then closes the drapes a little bit and gets immediately spooked by the ringing landline. Um, and then gets a text from Amber telling her to answer the phone. Okay. She's like, how'd you know my landline was ringing? Amber. And you get the three dots, of course.
This
And
isn't Amber.
yep, exactly. And there's a little bit of a dolly zoom into Amber's or Tara's face at this point. God, you don't see those quite as much anymore, because they got overused quite a bit over the years. But it's a
Thank
fun
you,
little.
Spielberg.
Yeah, yeah. It's still fun. I love a good dolly zoom. And we get a text back saying, answer the phone, bitch. And Tara almost dials 911, and then she gets another text saying, answer the phone or Amber dies. She's like, this isn't fucking funny, Amber. Another text back, I told you this isn't Amber. And then Ghostface texts her a video from outside Amber's bedroom.
How
So,
you would text a live stream like that who knows? But obviously, it's not
Yeah.
a live stream.
No, and I'm pretty sure it
Kind of a
was.
stretch.
Yeah, I think it was just a video file, but it's of Amber like
It was.
brushing her hair and getting ready to come on over to her house or whatever. This has been staged to death, but yeah, we won't get into that part quite yet.
Nope.
So Ghostface wants to play a game, Stab Movie Trivia. And Tara's freaked out because ultimately, these movies aren't really her thing. She barely remembers them, but he just jumps right in. What Woodsboro native was introduced as the franchise's main character? She thinks for a minute and she's like, Sidney Prescott. And he's like, great. Let's move on to question one, because this is also part of Ghostface's shtick always, right? He's got to do that warm up question that doesn't count even though the person's absolutely terrified.
Yep, always giving back on a promise, never actually.
Yep. Or just having to be, overly pedantic as far as, what the question was or what the answer might be. So yes, he's like, hey, that doesn't count because anyone could answer that question. So the real first question then is, who wrote the original book that Stab movies are based on? And she's like, that chick from TV. And it's good. He's like, that's not going to cut it. And she thinks for a moment and blurts out, okay, it's Gail Weathers. All right, great. See, you're good at this. Moves on to the next question. Who played the first victim in Stab? Okay, Tara's got to look this up this time, but of course it's Heather Graham. We all remember from Scream 2 that introduced the Robert Rodriguez directed Stab. And
they show Alicia Silverstone as Tatum, and I think there was another. I think it was. It wasn't Luke Wilson. He was Billy. It was Vince Vaughn as Stu. It's really quick, but they show that on there too.
That sounds about right. Yep. So yes, she gets that one correct as well. Amber might still have a chance. Now, here's the final question. Who was the killer in Stab 1? She answers a little too quick, though, and she's so proud of herself that, of course, it's Billy Loomis, and she got him, but nope, wrong answer. Afraid there were two killers. It was Billy Loomis and Stu Macher. Well, Amber has to die now.
Does it? Yep. That's the teacher thing. You only got it half right. You were right, but only halfway.
Yep, exactly. So Tara grabs a knife and charges for the door in this misguided attempt to go and save Amber, right? But when she rips the door open, there's Ghostface standing there at the door, and he slashes her stomach with a knife. And you got to give Tara some props in this film, because she gives as good as she gets, as much as she possibly can. She punches him in the head and then forces him back out and manages to get the door locked and back away. And she's rightfully so completely freaked out in this scene. She uses the app on the phone to arm the security system and trigger a call to the police, and picks up the knife on the floor and yells at Ghostface that the police are on their way. And then the security system disarms itself. And we get the fun little bit of, the voice through, whatever type of thing, whether that's an Amazon Echo or, Google Home or, HomePod for Apple, whatever the whole thing is.
Disarmed.
Yep. The back and forth.
It was pretty terrifying, like seeing that. It's like, oh
yeah, and you get the close-ups of the lock, firing the deadbolt, firing back and forth. It's good.
Even when people try to find ways to be safe in Woodsboro, it still is not enough to stop a Ghostface killer. Which I think is really cool that they're like, Ghostface still evolves with the time, and like, even if people probably were like, hey, we're armed to the teeth here. We got guns. We know how to use them. We'll stop a Ghostface. But even then, there's still a bullet vest that he wears, and who
Mhm.
knows how well of an aim people are? Because I mean, we've seen how Dewey shoots before,
Yeah,
and it's like
he's not a good shot.
no,
No.
and it
And
has a
that,
small target, especially
yeah.
from however far away.
Yeah, and again, I keep saying it over and over, but these films are such perfect little encapsulations of technology at the time the movie came out, and it's usually worked into the plot somehow, and just all the different little apps that are used in this film. Um, it's yeah, it's perfect because this would not have been a big thing back when Scream 4 came out. You would have seen like the bare beginnings of this kind of stuff, but it wouldn't have been prevalent enough for it to be a thing. That movie was about, internet fame and, the rise of vloggers and so on, which would have been a much bigger deal back then. But
It came
yeah.
like maybe 2 years ahead of its time before people really started looking at that.
Yup, and that may be of why be a reason why my first watch of Scream 4 didn't do a lot for me, but then I found it a much more enjoyable film as the years went on and I did subsequent rewatches. Um so yeah, she's fighting with the app and everything else and freaking the fuck out as you do in these situations and continuing to back away, and then the landline rings again, causing her to scream. It's just perfect. The people that jump in these movies when the phone rings, because
Mhm.
it's just that terrifying at this point. She answers it with a weak little hello, and we get a bonus question, Tara. Do you think I made it inside your house before you were able to rearm? And then he just pops out of the darkness behind her and grabs her, stabbing her in the gut. She gets another good shot into his head, and he grabs her and just kind of throws her to the floor, stomping on her leg and breaking it.
It's
Um,
so brutal.
oh
Like
yeah, oh
Ghostface is
yeah.
usually like he'll do the stabs and the slashes real quick.
hmm
But like if
And
he
there's
wants you
usually more
dead right
like
away, it's happening. But
yeah,
yeah,
and
it
usually there's more like pratfalls and Ghostface being like super clumsy and everything. But I
mm,
feel like he's a little bit more together in this film.
yeah,
Um, yeah, yeah. So yes, breaks her leg and uh, in defending herself when she gets back on her back, she takes a knife through her left hand. And shout out to the beginning of the use of CG knives in the
yeah,
previous film because it really helps with making the stabs a little bit more believable because you're not
yeah.
pulling your punches as much. Um, yeah. So yes,
It's so
she
visceral.
oh god, yeah. So she gets that. She's screaming like crazy. Jenna Ortega has a great scream. She kicks him off, and he kind of gets his bell run on the stone countertop. Um, and she's trying to crawl away, and
The
you
police
get
show
that.
up.
Yeah, you get the flashes of the lights from outside, and you hear the sirens and everything. And he slowly rises up behind her. I think that's one of the trailer shots. And
Yeah.
she's reaching for that exterior door as the sirens grow closer, and he's closing in on her slowly from behind. And then he drags her back, stabbing her twice in the back, and then flipping her over to deliver a killing blow. And we get the title card. Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, it's the openings in these films are in general pretty damn good, but this is just such a fun uh jump back into this series. I love it.
Mhm.
And then we cut to Modesto, which is yeah, in sort of Northern California. I think it's fairly level with SF, right? Um but yeah, we've got Sam chasing some pills with an energy drink outside her job at a bowling alley. And then her boyfriend Richie comes into the shot there, checking in on her. When he asks her how she's doing, her reaction just kind of speaks volumes. Um,
Mhm.
she's seems like somebody who's very tired of that kind of question. And I
It
don't think
feels
I noticed that until this viewing.
if it reads way different, like out like on a second view once you like know like all the twists and turns, and I really like how these movies do that. Like
Mm-hmm.
you watch it the first time, you don't know anything, and so like everything reads one way.
Yeah.
But then as soon as you know the twists, the turns, who the killers are, the motives and everything, and then all of a sudden it reads in a way different way, and then you just can't unsee it.
Yep. Yeah. It's very rewarding for repeat viewing for sure. Um, yeah, it's good stuff. And of course, Richie is played by uh,
Jack Quaid.
Jack Quaid. He's he's had a good several years as well. Um,
Hmm.
God, he is his parents' son. He's going to do so well in the future.
Yeah.
Not that he isn't already, but yeah, he's going to do really well. Um, so then, they do their little flirtatious thing and then, they're just kind of hanging out there. And then she gets a call and a text, from Wes Hicks back in Woodsboro. And she calls him back and finds out that her sister was attacked, but alive. And, then the bomb is dropped that it's someone in a ghost face mask.
Yeah.
And ooh, this has to hit particularly hard for anybody that's lived through any of this stuff in this town.
Hmm.
Um, so she's on her way back, and Richie's coming with. And I guess in
I'm
this
sure a
film,
lot of people and then like in Woodsboro don't think it's gonna happen to them because they're like,
yeah,
it's the Prescott girl, it's the Loomis people, it's the
yeah,
Mockers, it's all these
it's the
people that
people
it's
that
always happens to them and
connected.
never to
Yeah,
us, and so we just need to leave them alone and we'll be fine. But now that it's them, it feels different.
yep. Yep. And there's reasons for all this stuff, but we'll get into that eventually. And then we cut back to Woodsboro, and I guess they're back to canceling school in this film because I feel like it took forever for them to do anything like that in Scream 4. They just
Yeah.
kept everything going. But in this one, no, there's announcements that classes are canceled for the following day because of, what happened. And we're introduced to
People die all
Wes.
the time in Woodsboro.
Yeah, yeah. Um, it's a regular thing, I guess. But we're introduced to Wes, Amber, Mindy, and Chad, the twins, and Chad's girlfriend Liv. They're outside the school as they speculate about who would want to hurt Tara and what they should do to protect themselves. Um, and they're kind of digging on Wes a little bit because he's somebody who has an obvious crush on Tara, and he's the odd one out a little bit because his mom's the sheriff,
The sheriff.
Judy.
Yeah.
Wonderful to see her back in this film.
Yeah.
And then we see off in the distance Liv's ex, Vince. He shows up and he's this creeper who, of course, drives, a classic muscle car and is all crazy tatted up and looks,
Pretty
super
greasy.
greasy. Yeah, that's exactly how I was going to describe him, greasy. Um,
Yeah. It's kind of
and
weird that he shows up like just out of the blue. I know it's
yeah,
like to set him up as like a possible suspect, but it just
which is
kind of
something
like
that these films do really well still. You
they
always
do,
have to have your tons of red herrings.
but it
Um,
feels out of place right away, almost.
yeah. This dude, he was in also
The
last
Nightmare on Elm
year's.
Street remake.
Oh, I was gonna say Smile.
Oh,
He's
I haven't
really
seen that yet. I need to.
yeah. Once you see that, you'll like his character. He plays a cop that's got a connection to the main character. He does a really good job in that one. I want to see this actor go on to do other cool stuff too. Um, but yeah, that Nightmare on Elm Street remake is something that I've avoided, and I guess most people have told me for good reason. I don't know.
That's
How
what
do
I've
you?
heard too.
Yeah, I have no desire to watch that unless unless I need to for one reason or another. Maybe I'll have a super fan on the show. Who knows?
Yeah.
So yes, Wes gets a text from Tara that she's awake, and then they all peel off to go to the hospital and visit, except for Liv, who's got some reason or another to not. Again with the red herring stuff. And then we cut to Richie and Sam as they approach town, and they talk about how he's never seen Stab and how that's weird. And
He's seen Friday the 13th and Halloween.
yeah,
Apparently.
yes. And, she admits, okay, the movie's a little bit like Halloween. And, he goes on about how, that Jason guy's got some pretty solid ideas, joking about the killers from, these movies being something of like a Hitler to some people as far as how they get radicalized and they go on to kill, like some assholes do certain things in this country. They arrive at Tara's hospital room, and while things seem a little tense between the kids and Sam, Tara seems pretty glad that she came. And Amber kicks everybody out so Tara and Sam can talk alone. And that's where Tara finally breaks down here because she's pretty put together through all of this. But she's been through a lot, so I don't blame her. And we cut to the kid.
Cool they did the opening kill scene, but they don't actually kill the opening girl, and I think that was something really cool that they did with this movie.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, just different enough. And you don't want the film to be radically different where it doesn't feel like this is a Scream, but I like what they've done as well. And apparently when the kids bugged out so that they can talk, they just went to the bar. Because that's where they're at. Yeah, that's where they're at.
Not like there's anywhere else they're really gonna go, I guess.
I guess not. You think
Everyone
they would just
knows each other.
Yeah. You think they would just go to one of their houses and do whatever, the youths do these days as it is. But no, they go to the bar where, they clearly have soft drinks, but are passing around a flask to doctor them up.
I never noticed that the first time I saw it. I did catch that this last time though.
Yeah, same. I was just noticing them, shooting the shit and doing the speculating that kids tend to do in these films. So this is where they kind of explain Sam's backstory to Liv because she wasn't really hip to what went on. Sam had a major personality shift when she was 13 and then left town at 18. And, then they're kind of joking about possible motives to attack Tara and how most of them are honestly suspects. And then Liv's creepy ex shows up again. And this time he actually approaches them. And when Chad, is like enough of this
his woman's honor.
Yeah. Because of course he's got to do that. This is where the creepy ex pulls a knife on him. And the bartender just kicks him out and then kicks the rest of them out.
Yep. In the original script, Dewey was there too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. There was going to be this intro scene for him. And I think they had another one that was what they went with, but yeah, he was going to be there too. And then they didn't do that.
Interesting.
And Tara and Amber were girlfriends in the original script too, I think.
Okay. So. Well, they still play with some of that kind of stuff later on with other characters. So whatever. I think it all, pardon me, all kind of works out regardless. So then we cut to Vince pissing on the exterior wall of the bar in the parking lot and kind of muttering to himself about fuck this bar and blah, blah, blah. And
a red right hand.
Yeah, we do, because that was missing in the previous film and it made me sad. Somebody starts up his car and of course it's bumping red right hand. And he's kind of blinded by his own headlights here. And he thinks it's Chad fucking with him. and his engine revs a little bit, and he kind of makes his way to the car, and nobody's there because, of course.
But yeah, it looks like it was hot wired or something, which I'm not sure how they got away with him just right over there pissing, but whatever. It's a movie.
Yeah,
We'll roll with it.
exactly. Movie logic. So he kind of dips in and reaches for his keys to turn off the engine, and the music stops. And when he stands up again, Ghostface is behind him and he gives him a good quick stab in the neck. And with that, the music comes back for us instead of being that what is it, diegetic
Diegetic
sound.
sound.
Yeah. I think that's a fun little touch. And as he's dying there on the ground, in the headlights, Ghostface steps forward, cleaning his knife with the iconic gesture.
Really cool shot too.
Oh yeah.
With the headlights and
I
stuff.
feel like there was something kind of from the trailer that was cut here where you see the silhouette of Ghostface on the wall.
Yeah.
Seems odd to cut that because that was pretty dope, but yeah, whatever.
Yeah. It's kind of
But
too quick to dispatch of a really good red herring like him, but
yeah,
it's
we need some actual kills in this film. Otherwise, it's not
we
really
do.
a scream. But with one of the final chimes of the song, we cut to Snam snapping awake next to Tara in the hospital room. And Richie's off in the corner watching Stab on Netflix because, of course, he is. He's, he wants to do his research so he doesn't end up dead, right?
Yeah. You gotta be prepared like a
Yeah,
good Boy Scout.
you know it. And Sam says she needs to go off and get something to eat. And Richie has this knowing look on his face, and I'm thinking it's okay. You need something to eat so that you can take your meds or something like that, because that's clearly what she's doing in the next little shot here in the break room, taking some
Yeah, I
meds
never
and
caught that. But
taking
that's
a
really cool that he gives her that look.
yeah, he knows what's up. And she's taking her pills and taking a swig of water out of the tap in the break room. And when she comes up again, she sees this bloody Billy Loomis in the mirror, standing behind her and asking her how she's doing. And this is clearly a regular thing for her because
Such a cool surprise to see.
oh yeah, I was not expecting this, seeing this film. I don't remember it from the trailer or anything, so it was a fun touch. Um, and he's like, "Hey, those antipsychotics aren't working so well for you, are they?" And clearly not, because she's hallucinating about Billy. Um, and yeah, it's clear that's what she's taking. And he's asking her when she's going to tell Tara why all this is really happening. And then snaps out of this reverie when her phone rings. And of course, it's Ghostface using a cloned phone of Amber's, because we see on the caller ID, it says like maybe Amber
Maybe.
or possibly Amber or something like that. And you see
Yeah.
this again and again throughout the film. And it's one of those movies where clearly they didn't have the budget for like iOS or, a typical
Yeah.
Android phone because it looks fake as hell. And I get it. You got to cut costs where you can, but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
clearly a fake OS.
Yeah.
Um,
It's kind of odd looking, but I mean, Apple is kind of apparently stingy about like the bad guys are never allowed to be openly using their products, I think.
oh, they
So
have to be
using
Android users. Okay, got it.
Yep. Yeah, so being Android users really helps like throw the audience off so they can't be like, "Oh, they're in the clear, they're using Apple." Something
Makes
that
sense.
Ryan Johnson points out with Knives Out. So,
Okay,
yeah,
interesting. Um, so
which we'll get to later.
yeah, yeah. So they talk a little bit, and when she pushes back at him, he reveals that he's been in waiting in this break room the whole time. He was behind the door. and they fight, and she gets thrown on the ground. She uses a chair to defend herself. Eventually, she just pushes a table at him, and when she gets a clear window, she books it out of there to the nurses station, screaming for help. Um,
Deputy
and
Benson shows.
yeah. We cut to then Sheriff Judy Hicks grilling them about what happened and revealing that Vince was murdered. Um, and Richie and Amber kind of trade barbs about, what he was up to when all this was going down. And he's like, I was watching Netflix. And it's a super lame alibi. Um, and this is where uh, uh, Sam
We
doesn't.
see that they don't have a good relationship with the sheriff.
Yeah. Sam, she asks about the protection for Tara because she doesn't really think it's good enough. And Hicks is like, yeah, we got to step outside and talk. Um, and this is where Sheriff Hicks reminds her about her wild days and brushes with the law and suggests that, hey, you get a good night's sleep, and when morning comes, you get the fuck out of town. Um, and she bugs out. And when Sam pops back into the room, I love the line of, well, she remains a delight. That's good. um,
Yep.
yeah, I love the actress that plays Sam in this. I can see why some people may not like her performance, but I think
She's
it's
got a
pretty
good
funny.
energy for a Scream movie.
Yeah. I
She's really
enjoy
good
her quite a
in The
bit.
Heights too.
Yeah, that's a movie that I never finished. But I like her character well enough in that. Um, so Sam wants to talk to Tara alone. And we get that lovely line from Amber telling Richie to get out of there. Come on, Netflix, she calls him. And this is where Sam reveals the truth about why things went the way that they did back when they were teenagers, and how she broke apart their parents' marriage by screaming about her mom when she found out that Billy was her father, and how her dad was standing behind her when all of this went down. And she basically blames herself for breaking up her parents' marriage. And then she turned to all sorts of drugs and booze and shit and was a wild child and finally just had to get out of there. And Tara's not super happy about this. Tells her to get the fuck out of her room. Um, she needs a little bit of alone time, I guess.
Yeah, I would too if I found out my
Oh,
sibling
yeah.
was like a stepchild, I guess, of serial killer.
Yeah, well, and you find out why, you two weren't as close as you were originally growing up, and how it has so much to do with how, your parents broke apart and all that. It's a lot. Um, yeah. Um, and then we get Richie outside. Basically, he was eavesdropping the whole time and he admits to it. And Sam's like, hey, if you want to go, go. I totally understand. And, but
Because
no,
this is that part.
yeah, but no, he's her ride or die. Um, and, that's cool. That's cool.
Mhm.
They build Richie up as being an incredibly supportive dude throughout this film, and it works because you believe in Jack Quaid being that person.
Yeah.
Um, it
I know a
works
lot
for
of
me.
people suspected him from like the first get go in the trailers and everything, and I was like, no, I don't think it could be him.
Yep. But
I didn't suspect him until I actually accidentally spoiled the movie for myself before I
oh
saw it.
no. Well, that's something I've been very careful about because there's been Scream 6 spoilers all over the internet for a couple of weeks now. And, knock
Yeah,
on wood, I've been okay with that, but you never know.
same here. I've been really careful about it. I'm like, nope, I don't want to know anything.
But occasionally, damn you, Twitter and YouTube. Um,
Yeah.
And so this is where Sam thinks it's time to go talk to an expert. And we cut to the next day and Dewey's depressing ass trailer where he Irishes up some coffee and prepares to watch Gail's morning show. Um,
Tuesday
and
Tatum's ashes.
Yep. And this great little moment where he slops his coffee everywhere when there's a knock at the door. And it's Sam, and she wants to talk and comes right out with the I'm Billy Loomis's daughter bomb. And it's a blink it and you'll miss it moment. But Gail on the TV is like, if I ever threaten to get bangs again, somebody stage an intervention, calling out her haircut from Scream 3, which is just atrocious.
It really is. It has
Yeah.
bangs in 4, but I think they're not bad compared to the Gale's bangs.
Yeah, they're just, it's not good. And I'm glad that we're all, aware of that. So yeah, Dewey immediately asks who Richie is and how long she's known him. And when she's like, what, 6 months? And he's got to be, pretty honest. There are rules to surviving a stab movie. I love the scenes in these movies where they have to establish rules. Sometimes they're made to be broken, of course, but also, yeah, there are rules here.
Odd we get 2 scenes of it though, but I like that we have 2 very different ways of how it's presented and who is saying them.
Yep. Definitely different takes on things for sure. Rule 1, never trust the love interest. Dewey pushes hard and Richie takes offense. He's like, do I have to take this from shitty Sam Elliott over here or what? I love that line.
So disrespectful, but it's really funny.
It is. Rule 2, the killer's motive is always connected to something in the past. And rule 3, the first victim always has a friend group that the killer is a part of. Sam tries convincing Dewey to help her, but he throws her out instead. Great. Sam and Richie go to seek out Tara's friends. And then back inside, Dewey's like freaking out for a minute, then unplugs his phone. It's time to make some calls. And his first call is to Sid. And it's revealed that she has kids with Mark. And we get that great line when he asks if she has a gun. And she's like, I'm Sidney fucking Prescott. Of course I have a gun.
I love that line.
Yeah. It's, it totally makes sense. It's a shame that they weren't able to bring what's his butt back as Mark. And you never know. We might, we may get that in future installments, but you never know. So yeah, they hang up and he kind of tiptoes around the fact that he's no longer in the sheriff business. Yeah, but it's very clear that there's deep love between these two. And she knows that even though things did not end well with Gail, that there's obviously the connection there still. And she's like, have you called her yet? And he's like, hey, she's my number 2. And instead he's just too afraid to call her. So he's got a text.
It's so sad.
It is.
I love them both. And it's so sad that it ended the way with them both in the movies and in real life.
Yeah. And in real life, it's clear that they're still able to have a professional relationship together. I mean, obviously they were able to act together in this film, but they still own a production company together. So, obviously things fall apart, but they're clearly still friendly. Otherwise they never would have been unable to make this happen, I don't think. So yeah, he sends the text warning her to stay away. But also then how are you with an emoji smiley face?
I could not have sent that smiley face.
Yep. And then it's very clear what he's about to text. Something along the lines of, I still love you or I still care, but he stops himself from sending that third text. Instead, he grabs his gun. And we cut to Sam and Richie arriving at the Meeks Martin house, and they're surprised to find Dewey pulling up right behind them. And he says that, after, talking to Sid, he had a bit of a change of heart and he wants to help. And we get the Broken Arrow soundtrack here, Dewey's
Yeah.
theme, the brothers, Hans Zimmer thing. It's great because they didn't use it in the previous couple films, but it finally comes back. And it's good. It works really well as a theme for him.
And then Richie makes a crack about him showering, but still not. He shouldn't be armed.
Yeah. Yeah, probably not. Yeah. And inside, Martha, Randy's sister, and Dewey have a fun little exchange. They hug, and she's like, "You look," and he's like, "Yeah." It's like, yeah, you look like shit. We know, you're old, and obviously you're not in a good way. And then
Roots run deep with them.
Yeah. Yes. And then Sam reveals her secret, and then Wes eviscerates Dewey. About how he is potentially a suspect because, he was dumped by his famous wife and crawled into a bottle. And, he's like, maybe you're the killer because that cut deep.
I love that.
It's good. It's good. It's this. I appreciate the hell out of this scene. And then Amber reveals that she Googled Vince and that he was actually Stu Macher's nephew. So everyone's connected because, of course, Chad and Mindy, they are Randy's nephews. You've got Vince, who is Stu's nephew. And then Tara, who is, of course, Sam's sister. Sam is Billy's daughter. Everybody's in on this in one way or the other. And then we get Mindy positing that the killer is making a requel, which is a term I had never heard until this film. It's not quite a remake, but not quite a sequel. It's a little bit of both, right?
It's the Halloween of it all.
Yes, yeah, the Halloween 2018. And she goes so far as to suggest that Sam could actually be the killer. And Sam's like, fuck this shit. And she pieces out. And as she tears off in the car, she, of course, has to talk to her dead father in the rear view. And
you missed a really good line from Sam. Are you telling me I'm in the middle of fan frickin' fiction right now?
Yeah.
And he's like, no, you're the star.
But also possibly the killer.
Yep. And they talked about Stab 8 being the Rian Johnson movie.
Right.
That, of course, Liv likes because she has no taste.
Yes. Yeah, there's that.
And she's too boring to be a psycho killer.
Yeah, that'll come.
So mean.
Yeah, it's horribly mean, but Mindy, that's kind of who Mindy is. She sizes everybody up and tells them how it is, super, super easily and without any regret. So Sam tears off in her car, has that conversation with her dead dad in the rear view. And then she almost kills herself, much like, Kirby. Yeah. Same type of thing where she almost runs a stop sign, and it might even be the same intersection. Who knows? But very, very similar.
Dangerous intersection in Woodsboro.
Yes, it is. It is. They need to put a light there or something. But we cut to Hicks then at home calling in a sushi order, and she's about to go pick it up when she hears a door open and finds it standing ajar and then closes it, turns around, and of course there's her son, but of course she's brandishing a knife because of everything that's going on. They have a tense little exchange. So
he goes to shower and we get the reverse psycho.
Yes. So as she's driving off to get the sushi, she gets a call from Ghostface, And we get the whole, what's your favorite scary movie? And she says, I prefer animated films and musicals. Again, a callback to other films when people are bored with the question and they answer with Bambi or, something else like that.
Showgirls. Absolutely
Yes,
terrifying.
exactly. And Ghostface taunts her with the idea that by the time he sees her, he'll have already killed her son. And immediately she flips on the lights and sirens and does a Yui and nearly runs a dude over. Um, and she got pretty far apparently before she got this phone call because it seems to take forever for her to get home. But she does her best to keep Ghostface on the phone here, and she pushes back at him, asking how she even knows that, or how Ghostface even knows what Wes is up to. And then he asks her if she's ever seen Psycho. And we get the shot up into the shower head, just like Psycho, then, of course. And Wes kind of reacting like he thinks he hears a little bit of something as he finishes up. And that's Judy getting to the house. When she stops
with expectations, with like him being behind things, which
yep.
is fun.
Oh,
and
yeah.
we also we skipped it earlier, but it's also mentioned that because Wes and Judy are part of the quote unquote shitty sequels, that they're safe from being killed. But here they are about to be killed.
Right. Hardly shitty sequels. Come on, Scream 4
Yeah.
was. But that's
Mindy's mean again.
Yes, she is. So mean. Cuts. But yes, she pulls up to the curb real quick, turns off the car, and she's still got the flashers going, but the siren cuts out. You would think that he would see the flashing lights from inside, but no. As she runs up the front walk, Ghostface pops out from the porch and stabs her in the gut. And she falls back and backpedals away from him, but then he stabs her many times in the chest, and there is blood everywhere.
In broad daylight.
In broad daylight. This is something you don't see too often in these films. But Judy's down for the count, and we cut back to Wes finally getting out of the shower. And we're treated to, like you mentioned, this super fun sequence of jump scare fake outs because we're constantly expecting Ghostface to be there, and you get the little swell of audio just before a door is opened or whatever, but nothing. And it's Wes basically going around the house, going into the kitchen, setting the table for dinner. I love that there's the note on the refrigerator that there's lemon squares in the fridge, lemon squares that do not taste like ass.
Depending on who you ask.
Yeah, depending on who you ask, yes. And yeah, all these fun little fake outs. And then finally, he hears a door open. And he goes to check things out, and he sees the front door ajar, and he calls for his mom. And he goes to push it closed and lock it instead of looking outside, and turns around, and there's Ghostface finally behind him. And Ghostface kind of pins him against the door and just slowly, with great effort, plunges the knife through his neck.
Which was a practical effect that's just so cool.
Oh, yeah.
I mentioned it in the commentary.
It's so good. It's we see it come out the other side of his neck and everything. And he's like desperately, before this happens, trying to reach out for the taser or the pepper spray or whatever that his mom constantly forces him to carry because, you know, she's a psycho in her own right. And it's clearly not helping him here.
Yeah, in the original script, he was supposed to be chased throughout the house where he would go to a gun safe to get a gun to arm himself to shoot guys, but he was unsuccessful.
I guess. So yeah, he is dead. And then we cut to the exterior with the cops everywhere, and they've got things cordoned off. And Sam arrives on scene, and she kind of charges the tape, and a cop turns her away. And she's like, what about her son? And he's like, I'm sorry. So clearly he's dead too. And this is where Gail arrives. and she sees her kind of having a hard time, and she approaches her and, almost introduces herself. And she's like, Sam's like, "You're you." And Gail's
Last
like,
time I
last
checked.
time I checked. Yeah, Gail's one of my favorites in these movies. Absolute
I love her so
favorites.
much.
She's so good. And this is where Gail sees Dewey, and she kind of sputters about her last name. She, refers to herself as Gail Riley by mistake, just because she's in such shock to see him, and she's pissed. And she goes and kind of slaps the shit out of him. And she's like, a text? A text? As she's beating his ass. And and yeah. Yeah. It's revealed that ultimately he went with her to New York so that she could do her TV gig, but he couldn't hack it there and ended up leaving in the night like a coward, he says. And
Not for 60 Minutes too this time.
not for 60 Minutes too. It was for her own show. And it's so clear in this moment that they both still care quite a bit for each other. But alas, it just wasn't meant to be, right? And
Yeah.
Sam calls Richie, who's at the hotel, enjoying some pizza and just watching YouTube. And she lets him know
that
that
Kirby's alive.
Yeah.
Really quick in the thumbnails. But
Yep.
we see her.
Yeah. It's almost blink and you miss it. He's eating some pizza and makes some comments about Stab and everything before she butts in to let him know that Judy and Wes are dead. Hey, shout out to Chelsea and James of Dead Meat too, who are in the YouTube video. It's a fun little cameo for them.
Matthew Lillard is the ghost face in the video as well.
Yep. It's so good. And yes, Kirby is still alive, which is something that we knew because Wes Craven had always said that she survived, but it wasn't really canon until now. So, Yep, glad she's still kicking. And yeah, this is where she spots Sam. She spots the officer who is posted outside her sister's room, and she kind of panics because nobody's watching her, she thinks. And she sprints to her car, hops in. Who hops in after her but Dewey? He's, after that talk with Gail, he's ready to help finally. And he's like, "What are you doing? Go!" And they tear off to the hospital. And we cut to Tara watching Kevin Williamson's classic Dawson's Creek, specifically the episode The Scare, which was, based on all sorts of horror movies and everything. And it's even got Scream alum Scott Foley as a guest star in that particular episode.
And Joshua Jackson.
It's fucking perfect.
Yeah.
Love it. So Tara hears some noises from outside her room. She calls out a couple of times and no one responds. And she's like, fuck this. And with great pain, gets herself out of her bed and into a wheelchair. And as soon as she gets moving, the lights go out.
And she forgets her phone.
Yes. I love the lighting in this sequence of just the emergency lights in the hospital room. Everything's in blue, like you see around me right now. And it's so well shot. And yes, her phone starts ringing super loudly behind her when she makes it to the doorway. And it's like, it's too late. The phone's gone. Can't go back for it. She starts rolling out into the hallway, and it's revealed that it's Sam trying to get a hold of her. And Dewey's pretty concerned about her distracted driving here, but they keep moving. And Tara is just painfully making her way down the hall because, of course, her left hand had been run through by that knife. And we see that her wound is bleeding all over the wheel as she's trying to move herself forward. It's such a nice touch. let's see.
And
She
then it
gets to the
becomes
nurse's
Richie.
station. Yeah. Where she finds the police officer bleeding out on the floor and kind of gasping his last few breaths there. And then we're back to Sam driving like a maniac. And Dewey's like, we have to live through this to help her, right? And then back to Tara, kind of leaning in to check for the officer's sidearm, which is, of course, missing. That will come back later in the film. And then she hears a door opening in the distance. Well, time to hide. She finds another room where she wheels herself in, and she grabs the phone. She tries to make a call, but she's terrified and in a ton of pain. And you really can't blame her whimpering here. But yeah, when somebody comes through the door, she clocks them in the head with the phone, but it's just Richie. And as he explains why he's there, Ghostface appears behind him and slices him in the arm. And yeah, that's fun little callback to Scream 2 almost, right?
The Derek and Jill defense, yep.
So ultimately, Ghostface and Richie kind of tussle with each other, and he gets knocked down to the ground, and she throws an IV stand at Ghostface, giving herself a little bit of a window to get out of the room. And she kind of painfully starts making her way to the elevator. She's not doing so hot. She's been through the ringer already, really. And here's where we get the awesome trailer shot of Ghostface slowly stepping into the hall behind her.
Yep.
And Richie, it's so good. Richie's phone is ringing. It's Sam calling, and Ghostface picks it out of his pocket. But before answering the phone, turns on the voice modulator. I love that it's a unit that's like strapped to their neck. So good. And you see the light coming through the costume too. It's good. It's good. Ghostface gives Sam a choice, basically. He'll only kill one of them, Richie or Tara. And, Sam's pleading for him to stop. Ghostface has been, walking behind Tara at this point. He just dumps her out of the wheelchair. But, she's a survivor. She continues to crawl towards the elevator, and Sam's still on the phone asking him why he's doing this. Ghostface wonders if she's too weak for this franchise, and he's just looming over Tara with the knife. And you hear Sam say back, well, maybe you're right. Or maybe I'm just stalling for time, fuckhead. And with a ding, the elevator doors open, and there's Dewey blasting away at Ghostface, chasing him off. Again, horrible shot. Horrible shot.
Great moment, though.
Oh, yeah. Super awesome hero moment for Dewey. And Dewey goes for Richie. Tara goes to, nope, I reversed that. Sam goes to help Tara up. I kept getting their names interchanged as I'm typing up my notes for this. It was a struggle. So as Dewey and Richie limp along the hallway, Ghostface bursts through a window at them. And Ghostface and Dewey fight with the knife coming ever closer. And Dewey's like, not today. And manages to fight him off, headbutting Ghostface and firing several shots into his chest, knocking him back into a display case. And we get Richie on the ground at this moment, kind of staring at everything, sort of in shock.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe something else. We'll get to that. Well, all pile. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just saying, it's another one of those moments that plays two ways. And it really helps with the second viewing that you really get the full moment.
Yep. They all pile into the elevator, and Dewey pauses, and he's like, the head. You have to shoot them in the head or they always come back. And Sam says something like, Dewey, who gives a fuck? And as the door closes, we get this I do from him.
Yes.
Let's fucking go. Big damn hero time. Yes. And we get awesome editing here as Dewey walks down the hall emptying the casings from his revolver, and he's got his speed loader to pop in a new set, and just the back and forth between him doing this and his feet and him crunching on the glass and everything else. It's great. I could not be happier with how all this looks. The lighting continues to be pretty sweet with all that blue uplighting. And he kind of squares himself up with Ghostface and he's ready to take that shot. But then his phone rings, distracting him. And Ghostface pops up, stabbing him in the gut, then producing another knife and stabbing in the back as well. And we see the phone on the ground and it's Gale calling, because of course it's Gale calling. It's so sad. Ghostface just kind of lifting up with both blades and slicing through him and basically disemboweling him. It's brutal, absolutely brutal. And
worthy death for Dewey, though.
Yes. So we get both a horrible line and then an awesome line here. So far too long ago, Dewey was like, not today, as he's fighting with Ghostface. And now Ghostface, as he's stabbing him, says, yes, today. And if it had happened in quicker succession, I think it would have been better.
Yeah.
But because there's been like too many beats and too many bits of dialogue before this, it just doesn't play as well to me. I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it. But then we get the much, much better line from Ghostface. It's an honor, as he drops him to the ground there. And then
you really get that they're a Stab fan. And it was also a really good trailer line that they mixed differently, which was really cool.
Yep. And then cut to outside with people being wheeled out of the hospital and Gale arriving in slow motion too late, and she is broken. You've got Sam and Richie kind of holding her back, and it's so fucking sad. And they just kind of go from that to her just sitting defeated on a couch in the hospital waiting room with a little sad cup of coffee in front of her. It's just, it's awful.
It's heartbreaking.
It is. And
no matter what draft they did, they always decided that Dewey was going to die in this one.
Yeah. I mean, he's
been through enough. There's only so long he can survive.
Yeah, his limp goes away, his limp comes back. There's only so much you can go back and forth with that. It's heartbreaking. He's such a fun character and everything. Just a shame. But I get why they did it too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Sam apologizes to her, telling Gale that she didn't know him well, but that he helped her. And Gale wishes that she'd stopped him. But Sam knows that her sister would be dead otherwise. And, they're saved from their awkwardness by this nurse calling to Sam that her sister's awake again. So she takes off, but Gale gets a new visitor. Sidney fucking Prescott. That's right. And they embrace and, they tell each other that basically they shouldn't be there. And, Gale asks about Mark and the kids, and Sid confirms that, she's there to make sure that they're safe.
Mm-hmm.
It's cool. She understands her place in this world now.
Yep.
Yeah. And we cut to Tara then and Sam in Tara's new hospital room, and Tara's on some new fun drugs, and it shows, and they reconcile to a large degree. And Sam realizes just how Tara is in that moment where Tara kind of forgives her. And then Sam realizes what they need to do. They need to get the fuck out of Woodsboro, because it's what nobody ever does in these movies. And then we're back downstairs, and Sam, Tara, and Richie are trying to leave, and Sidney gets up to stop them and talk and see if she can get Sam to help in stopping Ghostface. And Sam doesn't want any part of this. She just wants to peace out. And
You want me to help a mother and a TV talk show host commit murder?
Yes. Yeah. And Gail gets a moment to be Gail when she hears the way that Sam is brushing off Sid. And she's like, you know how they say it always goes back to the original? This is the original. Yeah. Yeah. It's you want me to help you and the host of a morning show commit murder. And they're like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. They don't
That's
even
right.
like downplay it. There's like, yeah, that's it. That pretty much sums it up.
Yep, that's what we're here to do. Sam wants no part of this, and she takes off. But Sid has a backup plan. She put a tracker on their car. Now, two things. How did Sid know Sam was Billy's daughter? I mean, I assume that Gail told her, but how did Gail know? Do Sid, Gail, and Dewey keep a group text going whenever any of these killings happen? I mean, I don't know how they knew. And then second, when did she put the tracker on the car? Was it in the moment before she said it when she was standing next to the car? Because I found it doubtful she knew what they were driving because she just met them in that scene.
Yeah.
So
I like to think that she did it in the moment and she was really sneaky about it because she mentioned
she had
that
like
it's
her
something
coat
Gail
over
would
her
do.
arm or whatever and just kind of slipped her hand over and yeah, something like that.
As for the Billy thing, that's a really good question. I mean, I figure it's a small town, so
yeah,
I wonder
and
if
that's
it
what
was.
somebody else says later too. But
Yeah, I wonder if it was something that
cutting her on the floor.
happened during their relationship, and it was something Billy tried to use to get back in her good graces by becoming clean about it. Maybe.
Mm,
I don't know if that would work though, but it feels like something that he'd do as a manipulation tactic with her.
yeah, I mean, Sid seemed like a very forgiving girlfriend, but I don't know that she'd be
Mhm.
that forgiving.
Yeah,
Um,
it's really hard to say, but it does kind of. It's something that you kind of have to brush off to
yeah,
like fully enjoy.
movie
Yep.
logic. We'll hand wave it away. Um, So then cut to the car, and Tara's freaking out because she can't find her asthma inhaler, and she realizes she's got an extra one at Amber's house, which makes sense. It's your best friend, I guess. If your asthma is this severe, you're probably going to stash those in the places that you're mostly at. Maybe one in a locker at school, extra one in your bedroom, maybe whatever. We're
Yeah.
going to hand wave this away. It takes some persuading, but Sam's able to get Richie to stop there on their way out of town. And we cut to Amber's house where she's hosting a massive party to memorialize Wes. And again, this is the super meta bit of them also memorializing Wes Craven, because he died, 2015,
Yep.
from brain cancer. Hey, I love the bit with Chad doing a shot, after he gets everybody to, yell back to Wes. And he's like, "You beautiful son of a bitch," all, serious and everything. Um,
Yep.
Amber's a little perturbed by him doing shots, but that's how he's mourning. And then Mindy pops in to let everybody know that they're out of beer. Amber's like, "There's some in the basement." And she goes to get some. A great little moment where she opens the door and goes to flip the light and it's not working. So she has to use her cell phone to go down the stairs. And knowing what we know about the location that they're in, this is the old Stu Macher house. Wasn't
Yeah.
that the steps down to the garage in the original layout of the
Yeah.
film? But
Yeah, I
it's
feel like that
become
would
a
have been.
basement.
Yeah,
It's
it's kind of hard to think about because the garage would have made sense, but I feel like that would have been too quick of a giveaway for that big moment where they reveal it. But obviously, if you've seen
yeah.
it twice, then it's incredibly obvious that it's Stu's house
Yep.
because you can
Yeah.
recognize the way that it's all set up.
Hmm.
And don't they not have basements in California or something?
Yeah, that's not a very common thing to have a basement. At
Yeah,
least as far as I know from movies and TV shows. But
yeah,
yeah.
that's what
Um
I know too. So
yeah. I don't know. Have to ask some California people about that one. But
Let us know in the comments.
yes, absolutely. Do you have a basement? Um, but yes, turns out Mindy followed her down there, and they have a fun exchange accusing each other of being the killer and talking about smart behaviors in this situation. And we pop back upstairs to Chad and Liv making out on the couch. She would like to go upstairs for sex, but he wants to stay downstairs for safety, basically being only 99% sure that she's not the killer. She takes great offense to this.
But it's a smart move on his part that I respect.
It is. Also, I think her response is totally warranted because, wow, it's sort of a dick comment to make. So I get both sides of this one for sure. But she storms off and he's like, that's a valid response. And she flips him off and he's like, that's a valid response too. And the great little sibling exchange of Mindy like, good job, and big thumbs up. And he gives her an exaggerated thumbs up back and then flips her off with a little fuck you, Mindy.
The Meeks Martin twins are so great.
Oh yeah. The awesome chemistry between those two. And then we've got Gil and Sid pursuing Sam, and Gail speculates that basically everything is her own fault because of the book she wrote. And Sid tells her, no, this is all Billy's fault. Again, completely forgetting that her half-brother Roman was the one that put Billy up to this in the first place. But no, it's Billy's fault. And, they're going to go and end this. They got a plan. I get wanting to forget it because Scream 3 is, not the greatest movie in the world, but again, there's some lore there.
It's still canon, so it's kind of
exactly.
But yeah, it's too like. But I feel like because they're like dealing with Billy's kid, I guess that they're like it's got to be Billy's fault, I guess.
Yeah, tie it in a little bit closer. Sure, why not?
Because if you're like, it's Roman's fault, then it's like, if you're a new viewer who hasn't seen any other
you're like, who the fuck's Roman? Yeah, exactly. So then cut back to the party where Chad is concerned about Liv not texting back. And meanwhile, Mindy's watching Stab and thinking of getting in the pants of a girl named Frances. This clearly sounds good to Frances, who gives her a knowing glance. And Mindy jokes that Liv is probably dead. And Chad's not particularly happy about that. Again, he's just brutally blunt about all this stuff at all times. It's kind of her MO. He leaves to go find her, but not before Mindy tells him, hey, doofus, take a weapon. He grabs a massive candlestick and takes that outside with him. It's a good choice, I think.
It looks pretty heavy too.
Yeah, it's got some heft to it. Absolutely. Chad outside finally gets a text from Liv along with a request to join the GPS tracking app that he was suggesting they both use early on in the film. And we're all screaming, don't do it, bro, at the screen when he accepts. And he calls out to her and looks around and seems to be getting a little bit closer. And then he realizes how stupid all of this is given the situation.
Yeah.
And then he turns around and immediately takes a stab in the leg from Ghostface, but manages to get away.
He gives one good whack with the candle stand, but then drops it.
Yeah, because of course he does. And he kind of gets away, but of course the stupid tracking app is still running, and he's having the worst time in the world with his bloody hands and the touch screen to get things to turn off. He barely gets his phone unlocked to be able to do all this. And
then he
eventually
just throws it.
Yeah, he just gives up and chucks the phone into the bushes, which is probably a smart move. And he must have hit an artery or nicked an artery or something because he's bleeding pretty good from this leg wound. And he tries to limp back to the party, but then Ghostface bursts out of the shed behind him. And, this looks fucking great. I know it's a shot from the trailer, but there's a reason it's in the trailer because it looks awesome. Ghostface chasing him down. Runs him down. stabs him a few times, and Ghostface is scared off by the approaching headlights of Sam and Richie's car. Richie still thinks this is a terrible idea. He just wants to go, but Sam lets him know it's going to take 5 minutes. And then Tara wants to go in too. And he's like, well, you're not leaving me to get, murdered in the car alone. So
Nope.
he goes into, and everyone at the party is super stoked that Tara's there. But when Amber finds out, she decides to call it quits for reasons.
It's kind of a weird like thing because she's like, "All right, everybody out," but it's like,
is it for Tara's safety?
Later,
everyone else's safety, because the people that Ghostface has been trying to kill are now at the party. It's it's unclear. And then Sam does this little nod to Richie, like, hey, you got to be the adult here and help out. Yeah. And he kind of turns the lights on and tells everybody to kill the music, and he's got to be dad. I love the hi Gen Z. How are you? And finally he's just like, okay, I try to be nice. Get the fuck out. Everybody get the fuck out.
He's listen, the killers tried to attack these people already. He's probably going to try again. So either you're here and you're going to be attacked, or you can leave now. I'm saving your life. I promise you.
Everybody's throwing their cups at him. And I like that line. Yeah. Thanks for leaving the cup. Yeah. It's Jack Quaid gets some great lines in this movie. His delivery is awesome. I love the cast in this film. So we cut to Mindy making out with Francis, but the party's being broken up, and clearly Francis's ride is by someone's dad. Francis's ride is leaving, so she's got to go. What is it? Mindy's like, you got my number, call me or whatever. So that's cute. Good for them. They let's see here, say their goodbyes. She just goes back to watching Stab because she was having a great time doing that anyways. She's a little high, a little drunk. And she's got a bag of chips, so she's doing okay.
Earlier Chad called it really weird that she was watching their uncle die or get attacked, but it was because she's like, it helps me cope.
It's her happy place, right? So enter Richie asking her if there's any beer, and she directs him to go get murdered in the basement. They have an awesome back and forth about this. Both kind of laughing nervously about the situation, and cut to a jump scare of Liv hopping onto the couch, upset that she can't get an Uber home. It canceled on her. Mindy's just concerned because Chad went looking for her, and Liv doesn't seem bothered that he's missing. And then Mindy, not so subtly, accuses her of being the killer. And Liv decides to ham it up because she's pissed because of that line about how she's too boring to be the killer, right?
And updating my suspect list.
You're right. Liv is not pleased. So she leaves after doing her best to scare the shit out of Mindy, which I think she actually does a reasonably good job of, and also takes her chips. Because,
you don't deserve these chips.
No. Plus she needs something to snack on while she waits for another Uber, I guess. So back to Gail and Sid, and they realize what house Sam stopped at. It's the Stumacher house. Sid calls to warn her. And if it wasn't clear from before, with all these very familiar looking shots, the camera has to pull back to reveal very familiar architecture. And then back to Mindy on the,
and then it kind of zooms out as it pulls up. I really like that shot.
Oh yeah, looks great. And it's very clearly the Mocker house. And then back to Mindy inside. Oh yeah. They had to hammer
so hard to be like, this isn't Stu's house, but I mean, you get it on the rewatch, but they tried really hard to not shoot it like West did.
Right, that it was clearly that house. Yeah.
But then they do it, and all of a sudden it's familiar, I really like that.
Yep. And then we're back to Mindy on the couch again, a little high, watching the scene from Stab where Ghostface stalks her uncle as he watches Halloween, adding yet another layer of meta on top of this because Ghostface is stalking her. Finally, she starts to take the advice she's shouting at her on-screen uncle and looks around to see Ghostface attacking her.
Which is really
Sam,
funny.
oh yeah, it's so good. Sam hears the commotion and enters the living room to find Mindy kind of losing her battle with fending Ghostface off. So Sam picks up a lamp and chucks it at his head. He starts to run away, but then approaches back. She grabs another candlestick because these things usually come in pairs, let's be fair, and chases him out of the living room. She goes to tend to Mindy's wounds. Mindy realizes she's losing a lot of blood and starts passing out a little bit. And that's where Tara and Amber come back in, and Amber's like, what the fuck? Starting to accuse Sam of attacking Mindy because she sees them on the ground and, covered with blood and everything. And then Richie pops into the room, dropping a beer, like, oh my God, what's going on? And, yeah. When they ask where he was, he says he went to the basement for beer, and Amber questions why he would go down there alone. And then yet another jump scare of Liv popping into the room. And Amber's like,
blood on her hand.
Yeah, Amber's like, where the hell are you? Why do you have blood on your hand? She's like, I just found Chad outside. And Amber's like, one of you is the killer because I was with Tara all this time. And Amber, pushes pretty hard at Liv being the killer given the situation. Liv pushes back even harder that it wasn't her. And Amber just says, I know, and pulls out the cop from the hospital's revolver and puts one between Amber's eyes.
I thought it was Dewey's revolver. It could be either one, but
yeah I suppose. I think there's multiple guns that they procured from people over the course of this film.
Yeah, like 3 of them probably, at least.
But
It's Richie went to get beer when he's supposed to be the driver.
Yeah, I thought about that too. But yeah, it's weird.
Still there?
Yeah, it's weird.
Okay.
But she pops Liv between the eyes and then says, welcome to Act 3. Managing to fire off a couple of rounds, but Tara's kind of fighting her off, giving Sam and Richie a chance to get out of the room. Sam grabs a knife in the kitchen, but he tries to, kind of funnel her down to the basement. She wants to go back up and help Tara, but he warns her that there are always 2 killers. And this is where she starts to back away from him. And he starts accusing Tara of being the other killer because, she was basically the reason that brought them back to Woodsboro. And, she's been estranged from Sam for years. All of this logic sounds incredibly shaky. Then he just has to say, how well do you know her?
Better than you. And then she leaves him in the basement.
Yep.
So good.
Yep. Good for her. And this is where Sid and Gail make it to the Mocker house with guns. Because, Sid had that all prepped. So she gets one for her, gives one to Gail, and they hear, a scream from inside. They're like, that sounds familiar. And Sid's like, you ready? And Gail's like, for this? Never. Amber comes running out the front door screaming that she's been stabbed. Sid and Gail kind of glance at each other and they're like, trap? Yeah, trap. Amber says, fuck it. And she shoots Gail in the gut. Sid gets a few shots off at her, chasing her back inside. And Sid's like, Gail, you got to go to the hospital. We got to go. But Gail says, no, we need to finish this for Dewey. Yeah. So Sid enters the house and we get, the camera pulling back from her as she realizes, just has the memories come flooding back to her, I guess, of where she is and what's going on. And, she yells out, anyone hiding, killer or not, you have 5 seconds to show yourself. And she starts shooting through closet doors. Firstly, the one that she and her father hid in the original film. That was a nice little touch there.
Oh yeah.
And she keeps moving. And upstairs, we get Sam finding Tara tied up in a closet. And there's this fun little bit where she's about to untie her, but pauses for a little bit. I don't know if they're trying to make us think that she's actually considering what Richie had to say, or if they're hinting that Sam could be a killer after all. It's misdirection one way or the other.
Yeah.
It's a little weird. I'm not sure I like how it plays, but
Just a little.
but yeah, we cut back to downstairs where Sid gets a call from Ghostface, and the killer lets her know that he's not Amber, he's the other one.
Oh, so there are two of you. I have
Uh-huh.
seen this one before.
Exactly. She's seen this movie before, but the killer corrects her, not this movie. She's bored, so she hangs up on him and finishes firing through a few more doors.
And Ghostface really tries to get her to stop. He's like, no, 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 wait. She's like, nope.
Yep. And she ends up hitting Richie behind that final door. And, she's like, why didn't you come out? He's like, because you're shooting at everything. It's good. It's good.
It's fair, but it's still like, she told you.
Yep, absolutely. So as soon as they have this little exchange wrap up, Ghostface bursts out of a door behind her, and in the struggle, they both flip over the banister onto the floor below. Sid calls for Richie to grab the gun, and he's struggling down the stairs, and he's like, yeah, that'd be great, except it hurts like hell because you shot me, or something like that. It
kind of looks like it grazed him, but he still got shot,
Yeah, he limps pretty much for the rest of this film, so he probably got hit worse than that. So Sam gets the gun instead, and he sidles up to her and ultimately stabs her in the side, saying, thank God you're okay, because I really, really wanted to be the one to kill you.
And we get the longest reveal between two ghost faces in the movies, I think.
He takes the gun from her and yells at Sid to grab some floor because she tries to dart away, and then twists the knife in Sam's side just a little, making her squirm, and then hands the gun off to Amber, who's taken the mask off because what's the point anymore? And then Richie holds up the missing inhaler to Sam. He can't believe it worked. This got her to come back to that house.
And then he calls out the voice changer.
And then he acknowledges that, yeah, it's a bummer that it was him.
It really was.
Yeah, it was. It was. I liked Sam and Richie together. They were a fun couple. But then it turns out that Richie and Amber want to inspire a new stab film. Time to move everybody to the kitchen because the shit always ends up in the kitchen in the, at least in the first film. And they're going to save the franchise. That's their plan here. He sends Amber after Gail. Richie admits to Sydney that he's a really big fan. He starts losing it a little bit throughout the rest of the movie. He's had this great mask on for the entire run of this film until this point where he's finally getting what he wants and he gets to be himself. And
he's so unhinged. It's pretty great.
Yeah, he's just another fucking psycho. And he's upset with the direction that Hollywood's taking with these films, but he and Amber, they're going to give them news source material because that's what they need. They need this to be based on actual events.
Because how can fandom be toxic if it's out of love? And
yeah,
it's clear that they're really trying to lean into the Star Wars, because that's really, I think that's really what it was all inspired by, which is the fair thing, I think, because a lot of people really didn't like the sequel trilogy. So
yeah, and some people were super gung ho about Last Jedi, others not so much. Some people think Rogue One is the most boring film ever. Some people find it like, either the best or second best Star Wars film ever made. Fandom can be super toxic. Look what happened
Yeah.
to Kelly Marie Tran. She had to leave social media because of how bullied she was for her character in the second in The Last Jedi. So yeah, I love the little commentary about fandom being toxic and so on. And then Amber walks back in with Gail and tells her to sit down. So the plan is unraveled because, of course, you got a monologue about your plan as the villain, right? Yeah, the plan's to frame Sam as the villain. She's not the hero. Amber was able to discover that Billy was Sam's father because it's a small town and Sam's mother's a drunk. She starts to get pretty unhinged at this point, too. Again, they're just geeking out that they're able to get their way, aren't they? Amber and Richie,
they really did go for
yeah. Amber and Richie, they met on a Stab subreddit. Her being obsessed ever since her parents bought the house and she found out whose house it was. Richie found Sam pretty easily in Modesto and wormed his way into her life. He's kind of gross about it here. And they brought back the legacy players and killed off Dewey because they needed to show that their sequel had stakes. I think at this point, Sid tries to lunge for a weapon, but Amber stabs her in the gut. Basically, the plan is they're going to kill everyone because at least the fans will win. That's kind of fucked up. And they need to grab Tara because it's time to start staging the bodies. Like you do when you're the killer in one of these films. I still think Jill's staging of everything in Scream 4 is like top tier as far as that stuff is concerned. But I appreciate that they all have a plan here.
And they don't really fall apart within each other
compared
to other killers, which I think is a really good direction for the two killers.
Yeah, absolutely. This is absolutely evolution from all the other movies because in every single other film, there's like a primary killer and then the patsy killer. So yeah, even if it ends up on the cutting room floor as in Scream 3. So yeah, they need to grab Tara. He laughs that Dewey had it right off the bat. Look at the love interest, and he's basically calling Sam stupid because he thinks he almost had her convinced that it was her own sister. And then we get Tara calling down from upstairs Amber calling from upstairs that Tara isn't there. And Sam admits that she untied Tara. And then the phone rings, causing Richie to jump like crazy.
That's for you.
Yeah, that's for you. Amber tries to say that she can't find her and then takes a crutch in the face because Tara for the win. Tara starts just beating her ass with this crutch, and good for her. This was her best fucking friend. Appreciate it. Sam takes the moment to fight Richie, biting him to get away. I think she even bites him in the arm where he got slashed at the hospital. So, good for her. She knows what she's doing. Amber kicks Tara off and starts throwing her around the living room. And back in the kitchen, Sid and Gail overpower Amber and smash a bottle of hand sanitizer in her face. Amber tries to plead innocent, saying it's not her fault, that she was radicalized. She just wanted to be a part of something. Gail says, you wanted to be part of something? You killed my best friend. And you feel it.
Yes.
You know she means it.
And then Amber comes like, and then she drops the mask again, and he died like a bitch, and feels like enough of this.
Mm-hmm.
And sets her on fire. which
Well,
is
not quite yet.
no, not yet. I'm sorry.
Amber gets the upper hand by jabbing at Gail's wound. I love when they do this in these films.
Hmm.
And she kind of throws Sid back against the countertop, knocking her down a little bit. Cut to Richie stalking after Sam. He's following a blood trail up the stairs. And then back to Amber trying to choke Gail out, telling her that she was the last thing that Dewey saw before he died, and she's excited about the prospect of being able to kill them both. And how, it's time for her to pass the torch. I love Gail. It's all yours, bitch. She kicks her off, and when Amber hits the range, she accidentally turns on one of the burners. Sid then offers Gail the gun. Tells her, this one's all hers. And Amber goes back to pleading for her life, saying she's sorry about Dewey. And Gail just responds with a fuck you, shooting her 3 times. And when Amber drops, she falls against the open flame on the range, lighting up the hand sanitizer. And this is like a scene from Ready or Not at this point.
It's a really funny, it's not funny that someone is lit on fire, but it's funny that
No,
it's Mikey Madison who got set on fire because she was also set on fire and killed in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood just a couple years earlier.
that's true. Yes, perfect. Nice nod. Yeah, and I think it's Sid that says at this point, enjoy that torch.
Yep.
I wonder, did they like grab a fire extinguisher or something just to make sure the whole house didn't go up? Because they don't really show Amber getting put out or anything. Regardless, we're back to Richie following the blood trail to a door on the upstairs landing, and Sam comes bursting out of a different room, slamming into him, into the banister, kind of forcing him to drop the knife. And she leaps onto his back, and he's trying to shake her off, yelling, "Stop fucking up my ending." It's good. He tackles her down the stairs and regains control of the gun, asking her what she's going to do now. And she's kind of crawling away from him as he just blathers on, just waxing poetic. And she catches her father's image in the mirror, and he kind of nods towards this knife that slid under the window treatments. And one of the last things that Richie says is, the villain dies in the end. Those are the rules. She turns over and says, I'm introducing a new rule. Never fuck with the daughter of a serial killer. And she reaches up and stabs him through the face. I'm talking cheek through cheek.
It's so brutal.
Oh, it's so good. And then she proceeds to get up and stab him 21 more times.
Yep.
Before pausing. And he's like, wait, what about my ending? And she leans in as if for a kiss. And before I move on, I got to say that all these stabs are so damned brutal. There is blood flying everywhere, and he's trying to defend himself, and he's just whimpering, but she is not having it. She is done with this little bitch. So wait, what about my ending? She leans in as if for a kiss and says, here it comes, and slits his throat. And then cleans the blood off the blade, just like Ghostface always does.
Isn't exactly, I wouldn't recommend doing that. You could cut yourself.
Yeah, because she's doing it with her bare hand instead of the gloved hand that he always uses. But hey, I think she's in her feelings with this one. Yep. So she stands up, and Sid and Gail come out of the kitchen and step up behind her, and Sam drops the knife. Sid, careful. They always come back. Sam just grabs the gun from Gail, puts 2 in Richie's chest and 1 in his head. And that headshot was just graphic. The way that blood splatters. And Gail just says, okay, then. And then a burnt to a crisp Amber comes screaming out of the kitchen at them with a knife. And it's like the side of her head's like almost melted off. And she gets her head blown off by Tara, who just says, I still prefer the Babadook.
And everyone else is like, "What?" That's what I would
Yeah.
have done.
Yeah, because they weren't there for that.
Uh,
But
she probably like, "You had to be there. Don't worry about it."
yeah, don't worry about that. Sam and Tara kind of limp towards each other and embrace. And then we cut to outside with the cops doing cop shit. And, still alive, Mindy and Chad are being carted off into separate ambulances and they give each other their little sibling thumbs up. It's very sweet. And Sam goes to check on Tara. And Tara's asking one of the cops or EMTs rather, if they can go to a different hospital this time, which is kind of funny. There's probably the only one in the area, but whatever. Yeah. But Sam's like, give me a minute. I want to go, talk to Sid and Gail, who are just kind of sitting there in shock on the back of their own ambulance. They're about to be carted off themselves, but they're stable for now. So she walks up and thanks them for everything and then asks if they're okay. Sid's like, they'll survive. They always do. And then, Sam tells her that she was right about not running, which Sid apologizes for. That's kind of funny. And then Sam asks Gail how she's doing. Gail's like, ask me again in a few days. And she's got such a sad look on her face. It's, again, really heartbreaking. And at least now she knows what she's going to write about. Not this. Those fuckers can die in anonymity. Maybe something about a good man who used to be a sheriff here once. It's, yeah. And Sid's like, she'd like to read that story. It's all very touching. I love the delivery of it. And then Sam just has one more question. I feel like this is like ending after ending after ending. Let's end this, but still, it's good stuff. She's like, is she going to be okay? Sid tells her, eventually. And Sam heads back to Tara, seeing the image of her father one last time in one of the police cruiser's windows. And he kind of gives her an approving nod. Something we didn't mention, the images of Billy that she always sees are like the bloody white t-shirt version of Billy from the end of the original Scream. And the de-aging on Skeet Ulrich looks great.
Yeah, he looks really good in all of his like ghostiness.
Yeah. And I think it's to their advantage that he's like always in a reflection or something like that. So he doesn't have to look absolutely perfect, but still the effect is good. So she gets that approving nod and she tells Tara that she's not going anywhere without her. She's going to hold her hand all the way there. Shift back to the police activity and a reporter basically parroting Gail from the first film. And then we get a fade to black and a for Wes. To honor the legacy of Wes Craven. And then Ghostface Stinger, which I kind of missed from the previous film. They didn't have one of those. And then we get credits and Fall Out of Love from Salem, which is a fucking bop. And yeah, the images of the cast and everything, which is always fun. I appreciate that they continue to do that because it's old school and I love it.
Yeah.
But it's that's Scream 5, Scream 2022, Scream, whatever you want to call it. That's
5 Cream,
Yep, 5 Cream. This movie rules. I have so much fun with this one. And it's fun watching all of these in succession and getting geared up for Scream 6. You had something you would like to discuss here at the end.
Yeah. There's a few things I did want to bring up, but like
by all means.
So first, I guess would be like I guess something that really sours the feelings about this movie is that it's not the Scream 5 that we were originally going to get. That got canceled because Scream 4 didn't do well, which really sucks. But like,
yeah,
but Scream 5 was originally going to be following the original ending of Scream 4, where Jill did get away with it. And then 5 was going to follow her to college, where Sydney was a professor and had forgotten that Jill was the killer that attacked her. And so then it was going to be another Ghostface. So it was going to be killer versus killer on a college campus, which I think sounds really cool.
I like the
It'd be
concept.
yeah.
I would love to know how they hand wave away Sid not, knowing how things played out at the end of that film.
Well,
Or
Dewey
she could have
says
been
she could
knocked
not
out or
remember.
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, Dewey does mention that she could just not remember what happened, which I think was the original thing, and then eventually they shifted it to the rewrited ending. But yeah.
Hmm.
And then so yeah, I think that would have been really cool. But if we got that and then from Wes before he passed, and then we got this, I would have been happy with that too.
Damn.
You know? But yeah, there was that. And then I also wanted to bring up something that my friend and I were talking about before earlier this week was how we would twist the two killer formula that Scream likes to follow. And I was just curious what your thoughts would be on how to do that.
Yeah. I think something similar to what you brought up with the abandoned Scream 5, if they were separate killers that, kind of a spy versus spy type thing. I could absolutely
Mm-hmm.
see that working out well. I'd love to see that film. I think having it played off as there are two killers, but ultimately, no, there really aren't. It's only one. You could, go that extra little step and have a third killer, maybe.
Yeah, that would be fun because that was the original Scream 3 was Derek, Hallie, and then also Mrs. Loomis.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Could see that. Yeah. I'm very curious to see what happens in Scream 6.
Mm-hmm.
By all accounts, this looks super brutal. I love that they're supposed to have kind of ramped up the camp a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that can be fun in these types of films. And I hope it kind of solidifies Radio Silence's take on these movies by
Mm-hmm.
just kind of continuing some of their vision, helping to maybe make this particular film, Scream 2022, just, I don't know, just a little bit more solid by, everything
Mm-hmm.
continuing on in this, arc. Again, really hope they're able to continue on and possibly get Nev back again. Um, and if they
So if
kill
she
Gale in
doesn't,
this one, I riot. Um,
yeah.
but it's so possible.
It's a hard thing to think about, like how they could do.
Yeah.
I mean, if they continue without Sydney, she gets her happy ending. But I mean, it all
Yeah.
started with her, so it's really hard to say which way it should or would want, or how you would want it to go, pretty much.
Yeah. I just hope it's a good, entertaining story. It's got some good spoops, and ultimately I get some good laughs out of it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, hopefully we get some, continuation of good end credit music because, like we were talking about offline, Scream 4 starts with a pretty good song when they shift to the credits. And I like this one quite a bit, Fall Out of Love. I think I prefer the original version from Salem and not the duet version, even though that's good. It's just, I think it goes a little bit harder in the original, but it's fun stuff.
Yeah.
Got to have some Red Right Hand. I hope they work that in somehow in this new one. We shall see. It's nearly upon us. And like I mentioned, I've got, unbeknownst to me, but knownst to the theater when I booked the ticket, I have a 3D showing that I'm going to, so we'll see how that plays out. I can't remember the last 3D horror film that I saw, so we'll
Yeah.
see.
This would be my first 3D horror movie if I choose to go to 3D. So I'm curious how that would go because those can easily just be cheesy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
If it's just all done in post and nothing was shot with the intention of it being 3D, then you're right. Absolutely cheesy as hell. But if some stuff was intentional, then it can be fun. So
yeah.
we'll see. It's just a scant few days away. Um, I am hyped beyond belief, even though I look like I'm very tired. It's been a long day. Um,
Same.
but yeah, yeah. So Drew, any final thoughts on Scream 2022?
Uh, Talking about it makes me happier with it. I mean, when I last watched it the other day, I was like, maybe I don't like this one very much, but I think talking through it makes it more enjoyable. It's like I love all the movies, I don't think there's a truly bad one among them.
I
There's
don't think
just
so either.
mild lessers. So it's all kind of up to taste really, but yeah, I really enjoy all of them. So it's a good time.
Yeah, it's been a great franchise. Well, if you'd like, Drew, where can people find you?
You can find me on the Twitters and Instagram at 2feist2furious. I believe that's also my letterboxd if you want to follow me there. I've been trying to be really good about logging all the movies I see. Um, and you can see my Scream ranking there if you'd be so inclined as well.
Nice, nice. I've been trying to be better this year about actually using Letterboxd as well. I think if I can keep up with it by year's end, it'll all be worth it. Just from the perspective of being able to remember what you thought about stuff without having to rewatch it. But
Yeah.
yeah, man. Uh, well, this has been Murders with Mertens, a horror film podcast. Thank you for letting us tickle your ear holes. Please like, share, and subscribe if you are so inclined. I'll be back soon enough with another episode. But until next time, stay spoopy, everyone.